Oh man, I don't have a vessel.
Go get yourself a vessel.
Need a vessel. All right, let's get it rolling.
Welcome to another episode of the Coffee Roaster Warm Sessions podcast. Sergi goes to grab a vessel.
I need to ask the folks, am I drinking like Edwin out of a...
No, you cannot drink out of a cupping bowl. We're going to save that only for Edwin. That's it. And if you haven't listened to Edwin's podcast, owner of Onyx Coffee Importers, not Coffee Lab, you should, because it's a very, very good episode. That being said, a little bit of a chaotic start, but let's just pour some batchy. Dude, I love those Hasami mugs. Man, you guys,
I sold one today.
Hasami mugs are so incredible.
Someone came in and said there was like the best thing he's ever like drank coffee out of.
I believe it. It's so transformative. Like, it's like a completely different drinking experience, let alone, dude, they're so photogenic. Like, imagine this on like a cute kitchen counter. Man, the handle one, I've been drinking out of the handleless one for so long. Now that I'm seeing that, I'm like, maybe I should just go back to drinking.
Two different tones too.
Dude, so beautiful.
I'm gonna hit up.
And they're stackable.
I'm gonna buy one of those on Tuesday when I hit up the shop. Why did it cool down?
Yeah, it cooled down a lot actually.
I don't think was the water hot because it brewed so quick.
I did brew quick. But I think the other thing is, if you don't preheat your Hasami mug, it sucks out the heat out of the coffee so much.
We don't at the shop.
Well, these do.
Dude, Americanos in these, blazing.
What?
In the Hasami mugs, Americanos, like you can't touch the Hasami mug.
Yeah, because the Hasami mug, it soaks in the heat.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Not a bad brew.
Dude,
it's just
tastes awful.
It just doesn't taste super great. No. I mean, no, it doesn't taste awful. I'm not going to say that. This is not my definition of awful. It does taste bad, but not awful.
I don't really know what I'm tasting.
Oh boy.
Unless this is just very vegetal. Not vegetal, but like almost green.
No.
It just tastes green to me.
It's definitely tastes too watered down. You did a 1-2-16?
Mm-hmm.
Are you sure?
Maybe the grind size wasn't...
It wasn't fine enough.
Sure. Yeah. Maybe that's why it brewed really so quick.
Thin. Yeah. It's pretty much, we just got two different coffees, random coffees that we had, blended them together, which now evidently was not a good idea. But I also don't have any coffee here. I just have like a bunch of
5
coffees.
Bags, 6 bags, 8 bags. Not 9
They're
bags.
not full. They're all pretty much empty. And there are coffees that I'm not really...
It looks like the shelf of a cafe. You only have one roasting company that I shall not reveal.
You have
3 different bags.
No, what do you mean? There's like 5 roasting companies down there.
No, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 different 4 different bags of one roasting company.
Okay.
Of a total of 2, 4, 6 of that same roasting company. It's like a retail shelf.
3 roasters. What do you mean?
4 of one and 6 of another. Looks like a fan favorite.
Folks, I don't think I'm the only one. I feel like probably 60% of people watching this probably have more than 2 roasters on your coffee bar. Friends, if you have more than 2 coffee roasters on your coffee bar or in your shelf or just ready to be brewed, guys, drop a comment down below on YouTube and tell me how many coffee roasters are you drinking all at once here.
Or better yet, create no, it's not a duet. What's it called when you take a photo? Like you add another photo within a photo on Instagram stories. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Dude, screenshot the podcast, folks.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then, add another photo of the roasting company that you have multiple bags of.
That's really complicated.
It is, but, for the diehard fans, they'll do it.
Dude, Just send it. We want to know how many roasters you're drinking, and one of those bags better be Mir. That's it. One of them.
I mean, if you tag another roasting company, I won't be mad. It'll be hype for the other roasting company.
It's true. We have a no competition clause at Mir. We don't care about competition because it's all about the infinite game.
Oh, Simon Sinek. I gotta stop drinking this.
I know it's kind of addicting though. Do you think Simon Sinek drinks coffee?
Probably. I mean, who doesn't drink coffee?
I mean, he did mention no. There are people who don't drink.
I mean, yes, you're right. I'm wrong. That was just being.
Yeah. What do you think he drinks?
If I was Simon Sinek, I'd probably drink not something like classic, but like a nice. I would say Simon Sinek is probably drinking Onyx Coffee Lab. Like bougie enough, fancy, cool, modern, hip. You know, but he's not falling for like were you talking about roasting company or were you talking about origin?
Just coffee style roast flavor.
Roast style is probably be Onyx Coffee Lab. Yeah, I think that's Simon
interesting.
Sinek. Yeah. He's curious enough to like know, like, okay, the know.
Does that mean like your personality actually has a coffee?
Maybe. No, like I completely changed my answer when you said that.
Because doesn't that make sense? Like if you're like, hey, who do you think like if like Joe Biden, if he drinks coffee, does he? Does
he always has a good coffee? Cup of Joe.
Do you think? Oh
yeah, dude. I know what Joe is drinking, dude. What? He's drinking the NPR blend from Counterculture. Oh, hands down. You know Joe's brewing that.
I don't know, dude. The NPR blend? Yeah. Are you sure?
Yeah, NPR blend. The Counterculture NPR blend.
But like, like you see like somebody, you're like, oh man, what do you think they drink? Like you have an idea. I don't know if that's like, maybe that's too like this. Maybe that's too being too this.
That's like that. I mean, there's the Enneagram. There's the coffee. Like
maybe I'm causing too much division in people. No. Maybe I'm adding too much assumptions to this.
No, I mean, we just can come up with a coffee personality test. It'll be all fair. Yeah. Yep. I mean, I'm guessing we all know what the other Joe drinks.
What Joe?
Black Rifle coffee.
Oh, dude. Listen, that's...
Or Death Wish coffee. What is it? I have no idea.
I can't believe they got him, dude. They just paid him. He sold out. They paid him enough monies, I'm telling you, to just drink that coffee. And I just like... I don't know. He better not be putting creamer in his milk in this coffee,
dude. He wants strong.
The strongest coffee, the most caffeinated, the boldest flavors, the smokiest.
Back to the Simon Sinek thing. I actually think Simon Sinek, when you said personality, I changed. I can totally see Simon Sinek and James Hoffman hanging out.
Maybe for a split interview. I don't think they'd
Simon
be like
Sinek's
long
probably
buds.
a square mile guy.
Yeah, maybe.
I can see that fits the personality.
Yeah,
fits the bill.
Maybe, yeah. But Square Mile is like pretty close to Onyx. Just the Onyx of the UK or wherever they're from.
I reckon, yeah. Something like that.
Yeah.
Dude, Onyx is next level though.
Yeah. I need to order some coffee from Onyx.
Man, it's been a while.
It's been a while. Well, speaking of roasters, what do you think? Like, what's your ideal roaster? Like, what I mean by roaster, like we're not talking machines here. Like coffee roasting company. Like, completely remove yourself from being like a coffee professional or working in coffee. Remove yourself completely from owning a roasting company. Just think about like, man, what kind of coffee would you be drinking if you were to be you're just like a home barista?
Yeah.
What are you looking for?
I mean, right, if you're going to boil it down to like just simplistically just looking in from the outside, be the coffee bag itself, right? So I probably align to more or less like the type of style or fashion of clothes I would like. I think there would be two things that would intrigue me. Dead stock.
Yeah.
Right? Because I like sneakers.
Fair.
Dead stock, if I was looking for sneakers and saw, there's a coffee brand that does sneakers, I would probably lean towards dead stock. That would definitely be one. And then I think one of my like most worn brands would be like Essentials or Fear of God. So a brand that would kind of aesthetically appeal to that brand. Or, like just simply aesthetically, design wise, right?
Yeah.
And that, I don't know why I automatically think of Nomad if I had,
Oh, yeah.
so I would probably do that.
So if I'm catching your drift, like all this is purely aesthetic.
Yeah. Well, you're saying like I don't know anything about coffee.
No, not that
I just
not
know
that, you
that
don't
coffee
know anything.
flavor.
No, not that you don't know anything about coffee. You know,
Okay.
like, come on. Like home
Oh,
baristas
okay.
know a thing about coffee.
Okay,
Like,
okay,
let's say
yeah.
like you don't have an EK at home, but you have like the new Timor, like
Oh,
72.
so I know something about extraction.
Yeah,
something
you're
about
like
coffee.
you're like brewing
Yeah.
nice tasty
I've watched
filters
like
at
5
home.
tutorials at this
Like,
point. Like,
like you're a fan of Daddy Hoff.
okay,
Like you're
yeah.
in the know, but you don't work in coffee.
Mm-hmm.
You would probably still choose the same thing, yeah.
I think an easy go-to simply based on reputation would be Onyx Coffee Lab, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would say that's a crossover between like a gateway drug to like, ooh, this is like very good coffee,
Fair.
right? And then I would probably move over to something, again, like the design elements and what it represents is super important to me.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be something like that. Another, like the brand that I kind of see in my head right now would be like DAC.
Yeah,
Like,
actually, dude, man,
That would be a good one.
I want to get some DAC.
Yeah, I haven't had DAC in a while.
Right. Their last
So-
Ethiopia I had from them was pretty tasty.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna have to go pick some up from Vancouver. Hopefully, maybe Revolver has them or whatever. But yeah, it seems like it's purely aesthetic driven, which makes sense. There's a lot of, and I want to save that podcast actually for, I was gonna say like, when you do the pod, hopefully with Ansley sometime.
Oh,
Like
right,
talking
yeah.
about that crossover of the impact that that design or aesthetics or visuals have on coffee. And we've done multiple episodes talking about that. So I don't really want to go down that rabbit hole. But I would probably agree with you that, and maybe this comes also from our background with like photography and kind of the content side and visuals and stuff like that, that plays a big role in how we choose who to even drink coffee. And that's sometimes even regardless if they're the best or not, And so I think, and I'm wondering like, man, as a coffee roasting company, how do you set yourself apart from other coffee roasting companies? And that's like a really difficult task to do actually, because it's oversaturated. Like, and I think that a lot of things are oversaturated. Like, there's very few industries that you can start a business in that's like, dude, nobody has ever thought of that. Or like, there's only 10 that exist in the country. Chances are, like, those are some, like, you can become a car manufacturer and you're going to be one of the 15 that exist or whatever, like, but that's a whole different story. But a coffee roaster, like, everyone and their mom seems to be roasting coffee. Like, literally, it's become so mainstream. And so the question is like, how do you stand out as a coffee roaster? But also like, what about a coffee roasting company actually even matters? That's at the end of the day, that's like a big question, because I think they go hand in hand. Like, if nothing matters about a coffee roasting company, then I don't think it matters to be drinking coffee. Yeah. And if it matters to be drinking coffee, and the fact that now people are having these like EKs on their kitchen counter, and I mean, the crazy stuff that I see out there from home baristas, you start to realize, oh no, there's like, this matters. This actually takes up a big part of culture of life. Then that brings you back to the question of like, then what matters? Then, and I, throughout this conversation, I could be biased. And so take this all with a grain of salt, but I'm also trying to put myself in the shoes of somebody who doesn't own a roasting company. Think about, man, what do I enjoy about drinking coffee, or who do I buy coffee from, or what draws me to certain people, or certain companies than others. And so at the end of the day, like, I think it has to be a lot more than saying, man, we roast tasty coffee. Like, I literally have not gone onto a single coffee roaster's website and saw, man, we roast the second best coffee.
Yeah.
And that might be actually, like, now that I think about it, might be a great marketing little trick. So do some reverse psychology on people. But
it's just a billboard that says mediocre coffee.
Yeah, just mediocre. Like, don't buy from us. And then like a link to where you can buy coffee. But I mean, that, goes to show, like, everybody's saying they roast the best coffee, or they'll say, craft, premium, all this stuff. And it's kind of like we, in the specialty crowd scene, we kind of want to say that because, we are roasting really delicious coffees. Yeah. But at the same time, from like somebody who, is a home barista or is getting into coffee and wants to expand their horizons, I mean, that all sounds the same from everywhere. And so, what do you think? Like, how do you... what matters here? How do you stand out, and what do you think stands out to you? And of course we talked a little bit about aesthetics, but any thoughts?
I think there's a couple of things we can talk about here. One is the power of influence from other people, and then the other one is basically things that are linked to coffee. Like I mentioned Deadstock earlier.
Yeah.
And the fact that Deadstock is a coffee company that actually is like passionate about sneakers, to say the least, right? Yeah. They also make sneakers, but like they have this, they're well known for being a sneaker coffee company, and they're super famous for that very niche, right? I think there's a degree of attraction there that you want to try this coffee, not simply because you are looking for a specific origin or a specific processing method. You're looking for a specific brand, and that brand is bigger than the actual like technical information of the coffee, right? Sure. So that's one thing. I think the other thing is I was thinking about talking to that one person from Florida on Instagram. Like we were DMing recently met them. But one of the things that they mentioned, majority of the coffees they drink is, or a lot of the coffees they've enjoyed was been based on Alex Wallace's recommendation. And I think within that, we also tend to be within a very big or a very small niche where a lot of us are talking about the same brands. And that conversation is different than just simply finding a coffee brand based on some kind of attachment to coffee. So there's two different demographics here that you can gather attention from. One is basically the folks who are always talking about coffee, and one is basically on the things that are added. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, I think actually, before we even started this podcast, I've been just thinking about this. I think Deadstock is actually one of the most iconic brands that are doing something very different. And the fact that they're merging like a distinct like sneaker culture with coffee culture. And I think that's absolutely fascinating because that creates so much more depth to what they're doing. And it actually invites people that maybe would not be specifically coffee enthusiasts or whatever into this, and actually introduces them to this coffee world. And then it does the vice versa of that. But then also, I think it adds so much personality to the brand and so much intrigue and interest. And I think that's what you're saying is that there's a multi-dimensional level that's like, oh man, they're like about the sneaker culture. They have like a subculture to them that is drawing me. And if you're into sneaker culture, you will go there and you will drink their coffee. So that I think that's an extremely powerful concept and aspect that I don't think many coffee brands have built, but it's very important. But you see, actually, ironically, speaking of Joe and his poor coffee choices, like Black Rifle coffee, very similar thing. Like they have some kind of like a persona, like there's not a demographic, but like an aspect to them that is actually outside of just simply coffee. They have this, that, I mean, everybody knows Black Rifle. And so, which I think is powerful. And so I also think that that's very essential. To whether that's from a roasting company, just if you're owning a roasting company, it's something worth thinking about. But also on the other hand, I think if you're a coffee drinker, you naturally find that.
Yeah. I mean, we were just talking about Snoop Dogg and Indo Coffee.
Yeah.
That's like powerful. Like someone is going to, I would say majority of folks who will buy that coffee are simply because they're Snoop Dogg fans.
Yeah.
You're not just going to pick it up because, oh, I need a cup of coffee here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And to be honest, in my opinion, maybe this is too controversial of a take. If you're just picking up coffee for the sake of coffee, like at a grocery store, you're probably grabbing Starbucks because Starbucks is known for just being the brand of coffee. Right? Am I wrong? Am I crazy here?
I think there's some truth to that.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're not picking up just simply Starbucks, but you're picking up something that feels very natural.
There's a brand value.
There's you know, with the way you said, man, Starbucks is just the coffee brand.
Yeah.
You can replace that name Starbucks with anything. Kirkland Signature. You know, you have that Francisco
Folgers.
Bay.
Yeah.
Like it's just those iconic home brands that feel natural to people, you know, which can be different for everybody. But yeah, I think Snoop Dogg is also a really great example of that. But there, the perk there is that it's him.
Yeah.
He's the intrigue. He's the interest because he happens to be a celebrity that has built some kind of, I don't want to say brand, but that's the only word I can use. Yeah. Built this community. And of course it's around also music.
Right. That's what
so
I was
now
gonna
you're
say.
bridging music and coffee together. And I think like just solely from like a, man, I don't want to keep beating, you know, the dead horse, but from a pretty much a coffee drinker standpoint, I love that. Like I want to see more of that. Like I want to see brands mixing a lot of really interesting things together that appeal to certain audiences. I want to find a brand like that I can just buy and enjoy simply because it's that.
Yeah.
Simply because they have this kind of vibe to them. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah. Another person I think worth highlighting is what Propaganda, the hip hop artist and poet, is doing with Terraform Cold Brew, right? And I think the interesting fact about him is there's crossover between high quality, specialty, like third wave style of coffee. He's growing that persona of like passion for that. His Instagram is full of that. The podcast episodes that he's on, he has his own podcast. He talks about how passionate he is about the quality. But we all know Prop for the fact that he is a hip hop artist and poet. And he's an author and he's smart and intellectual. We know him for his personal brand, but then there's that crossover of quality and what specialty brings. And I think that's also interesting because now we're talking about there's a persona and identity around a brand, but then within that, we don't leave out the fact that quality coffee still matters to people who are looking for quality coffee.
100%. I think I'm glad we're going there because at the end of the day, as I'm thinking about this, I'm like, yeah, that's a lot of these things are actually the concept of building a brand, and which is not easy. It's not just building a business. Building a brand is kind of something a little bit different, but very ingrained in building a business as part of it. But I think the importance of brand, I think in coffee is oftentimes overlooked and kind of swept under the rug. Why? It's because it's really hard. It takes a lot of resources, takes a lot of time and energy to invest into it. And you don't often see a quick ROI on it like many business owners and, especially in the coffee business are looking for something that's long-term, but it pays off very long-term. And so I think brand is extremely important. The stuff that we're talking about is a brand. It's the personality and the company values. It's kind of like their persona that they're showing off to people. And I think we as coffee drinkers, but also as consumers in general, we love that. Like we much rather connect with a persona or some kind of being than connecting with just simply a corporate business. Like, how many of us rock Wells Fargo,
Right.
hoodies? None
exactly.
of us. Like, it's like, okay, I have a bank. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, when was the last time you hyped up your bank? Like, it doesn't happen because it's just transactory. I don't know. I think I just transactional, where it's just like, cool, I'm just showing up there because I need it, and it's just a utility. But I think a lot of us actually value the essence of being attached to something that actually aligns with us, that can allow us to express ourselves actually at the end of the day. Like, man, that V Friends hoodie, the Selfless Sloth, like, it's not the most appealing or the most perfect hoodie, or there's a freaking sloth, cartoon sloth on it, like, for crying out loud, and a 27-year-old guy is wearing this sloth hanging that says selfless. But what brings me joy when I'm wearing that is that I'm like, oh man, I know what that Selfless Sloth stands for. I know the persona behind it, and it's great. It's keeping me warm. It's a hoodie. I wear it. It's clothes because I need to wear it. But that's like maybe 10% of it. Right. 90% is actually like, man, I love this brand. I love the V Friends.
Yeah.
That's why I'm going to wear it, Yeah. And so, like, I think coffee is missing a lot of that. I want more of those things to come up. And I'm not saying, once again, we're not throwing quality out the door, but it's kind of hard when you're basing it simply on quality, because, like we said, every single website has, we roast the best craft specialty coffee.
Yeah.
Like, there's got to be a little bit more essence into that,
Yeah. That's also very similar to other clickbaity words such as, sustainability or ethical coffee.
Yes.
I don't think there's a, roasting company or coffee company that says, hey, we're a non-ethical company. Right. So we looked into, we're not going to name the brands, but we looked into some very, very big, massive, I think I would quote unquote second wave coffee brands that have a sustainability report on their website. And they're massive. So there's that aspect. So, like, just because you're quoting and using all these terms doesn't automatically bring value to your brand. Is it important? Yes.
Well, let me clarify that. Yeah. That brand that we're talking about just had the buzzwords.
Right.
And you just
didn't mean anything.
It just you keep looking for the transparency report. You keep cycling through web pages, and you can never find it. It's just like a hamster wheel, but it's on there.
Right.
They talk about it. Yeah. So anyways.
Yeah. So, and that doesn't bring much value to to the values, or I said value to the values, but it doesn't bring much to understanding what does this brand stand for, right? There has to be something that actually connects those buzzwords to something practical and something that people can actually relate to and understand. I think that's why it's also very, very hard to grow a specialty coffee company just based on education. I think education is very important. I mean, part of what we do on the podcast is education, but there's also an element of storytelling within that education. Like, we're passionate about those things, but just simply basing a brand on education requires a demographic that's actually curious enough to learn. So that can be very, very difficult, I think. So growing a brand and growing a quote unquote niche is very, very important, but you also have to be semi-selective to which way you're, growing it, if that makes any sense.
I think I would partially disagree with you on that, in the sense of, like, I think I agree that you'd have to probably find a lot of people who are interested in that, but I think education, to a certain extent, is actually a great way to do that. You just then have to be known for that you're really good at your education. Yeah. Like, you have to be really, really good at it and on par. And yeah, it does require people who are eager to learn. And I think there are enough people, but just like quality, I think it's very similar to goes with quality, is that maybe you do want to be known for your quality, but dang, you have to be remarkable.
Yeah.
Not, and I mean like really like the top, the best of the best.
Yeah.
And to be honest, Not many are in the top 1%.
Yeah, and
I think the top 1% is the 1% for a reason.
Yeah, and I think that's what I mean. It's there are people that come to my mind that can build a brand around education, like Scott Rayo, right?
Yeah.
Launching Prodigal.
Right.
Like there is a reason why Prodigal like just blew up really, really quick.
Right.
It's because there's been years of education invested, and that education like molded the roasting community, right?
100%.
There's value in that. So like that's big. But if you're just banking on education by whether it's reposting quotes just that you found online, like that may not carry your whole brand to be known for that, if that makes sense. I think that's more or less what I was meaning.
Yeah, no, 100%.
But it is important. Like, I'm not saying like just because it may not carry your brand to that level of being known for something, it doesn't negate the value that you can still bring through posting and sharing those things.
Yeah, you should. And, going back to like what we were talking about is like, I think with both, like speaking from a coffee drinker standpoint and from somebody who owns a roasting company, I think you have to figure out what that is. Mm-hmm. What do people want to connect with? And so I think like, going back to when we started, I remember having this conversation and that you initiated, which is great. But you were saying, how would Mirror be any different than any other coffee company other than saying we have the best coffee?
Mm-hmm.
And I could believe that, but there's got to be something else. And that was something that you kept bringing up over and over again, which is kind of just like, it's challenging to think about, because I think maybe a few roasters listening to this will start to ask themselves, oh, well, yeah, what is it, And so I think over time, there were a few things that we started to notice, like, hey, why aren't there any coffee podcasts?
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, man, what if we were to start a coffee podcast that was just iconic, that was some of the few that talked about the coffee industry, roasting, brewing, all this coffee news, and was a form of storytelling.
Yep.
Like that was something that we talked about and we're very intentional. Like, oh no, there's actually a missing hole here that we could be known for it.
Yeah.
Like there was also like conversations that we had of like, why aren't there like really solid, like epic video content about origin that exists?
Yeah.
And there isn't any. Like you can try and search and try to find it. And we're like, okay.
Yeah.
I think we're slowly finding ourselves as being, there's gaps that we can actually fill, that we have those skills that we can utilize.
Mm-hmm.
But that also doesn't mean that all of a sudden now we forgot the quality side.
Right.
There's just more added layers. And listen, we're not even close to where we want to be, but we're much closer than we were 3 years ago when we're having these conversations, which sounded very much different than where we are now.
Yep. 100%.
And so, I don't know. I mean, that's
no,
it.
I think you're 100% on, because when I hear you talk about that, the things that I'm thinking about, some of the things that we value as a brand is storytelling. Mm-hmm. So it's not like we just, use that as a tagline. Hey, Mirror's about storytelling. No, we automatically ask the question, how are we going to storytell?
Yeah.
Right? And then one of those things is like, oh, we're going to create video content. We're going to create Instagram content that shares these particular things that we value. Same thing with the podcast. We do care about education. That's why I brought up education earlier.
Yeah.
That's super important. We want people to know how the supply chain works.
Yeah.
But how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to do that through the medium of the podcast.
Yeah.
So people may know like Mirror for the Coffee Roaster Warm-Up podcast, but we know the podcast for the ability to educate and create community and connection.
And storytelling.
Right? And storytelling.
Yeah, this is just another way.
So, and those are the things that I think are super important. It's great to have these abstract ideas that are kind of out there in the ether, but you have to boil it down to how are you as a person, but as a brand, are going to execute on those visions. And that kind of becomes what sets your brand apart.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's a lot that I could riff on, but I think it's safe to just leave that there. And, if you're a roaster, it's something worth considering. If you're just, if you're a home barista, a coffee enthusiast, you're drinking coffee on the regular, something worth thinking about too.
Yeah.
Like, what do you want to see? Because there are things that I want to see, that I want to be a part of, that I want to support. I just don't see them. Not that they don't exist. Maybe I just haven't found them yet. But I there are things like that out there. And so, hopefully this was good food for thought for you guys. Hopefully this was interesting. Comment below some of your thoughts. I'm actually really curious.
Yeah.
Like, what do people think about this? Like, is this, I don't know. Do you ever think about it? I don't know. I'm curious. Give us some feedback on this episode.
Yeah.
Like, that
especially home baristas. I'm like, what are you looking for when you're buying a coffee bag?
Yeah. And what matters to you about a coffee brand? So, well, folks, that's about it. Listen, I'm just going to say one last thing. We're going to SCA Portland, happening in a few weeks. We'll be there, hopefully. If you see us, stop by, say hi. If you catch us, we'd love to meet y'all there. Whoever of our listeners is going to be attending. We're going to be shooting some podcasts at the Airbnb. We're going to call it the Airbnb sessions. It's going to be great. Yes. And potentially we might have Tanner Colson on the podcast.
Whoa.
In Portland.
Really?
Yeah. So I don't know.
News.
It's just work in the works. So it's gonna be great. I'm so jazzed. So there you have it, folks. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Coffee Roaster Warm-Up Sessions podcast. And as always, we'll just leave you guys with this one last benediction. Reflect what's good.